and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 191, and today's date is October 17th, 2013, and the title of this episode is They Are Now in the Process of Preparing the Next Event. And what we understand is that they had an event planned. It was the chemical attack false flag in Syria. They brought all the warships over. They were ready to go in and start the false flag event and eventually blame the collapse, the first part of the collapse, on this event. And what happened was they realized the American people were not for war. They realized Congress was not going to vote for this strike because the president actually does not have the power to go ahead and strike. If Syria actually attack the U.S., then the president has the ability. But the president really doesn't have the ability, and he had to leave it up to Congress, and Congress was completely against it. It was like 90% did not want to go into Syria. So this whole event was scrapped, and they needed a way out. So it kind of like John Kerry leaked, like if Assad, got rid of his chemical weapons, then we wouldn't strike. And that's how they leaked the information to get Russia to say, hey, we have an idea here. Let's talk to Assad. Let's see if he can get rid of his chemical weapons, and we can call this whole thing off. And this is what they did to get out of that situation. They always kept within the UN resolution that if things don't go as planned, they still have the ability to attack. They also said, and Susan Rice and John Kerry said, that they still have the ability to remove Assad and they would like a regime change, keeping the government intact but removing Assad. And we all know what that means. That means they are going to remove the government in Syria and put in the puppet government so they can sell the natural resources, their oil, for the U.S. dollar and implement the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency and set up a private Western central bank, which then puts them 1 foot closer to Iran. And this was their plan all along. Now everything has been pushed back because this whole plan fell apart. So what are they doing now? Well, they are in the process of preparing the next event, and this is what they're doing. They are structuring a new way for this event to occur, and they were going to blame the first part of this collapse on Syria by a cyber attack, getting into war, and they would bring down the economy, and they would blame it on somebody else. But what's happening now is that the Fed is blaming the economy on the government because it was shut down for 16 days or so. And they're blaming the government for the weakening economy. The government now is going to get out of this blame, and they are going to blame this on somebody else. And this is what they are doing right now. They are setting the stage for the next event. Before we get into that, let's go through some of the economic collapse news. And now that the government is operational and everything is funded again, I see tons and tons of propaganda and news flowing out, and one of them would be the unemployment. And what they're saying now is that the initial claims was around 358,000. It was a drop from last week's 374, but a little bit above the expectations of 335. Again, we know these numbers are not true. They changed the calculation, they're manipulated, they're massaged, and we know that this is all being done to show that the economy was getting better. But what do we see? We see many companies laying off. For instance, we saw Citibank, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, many other companies laying off thousands of people. And we see a lot of layoffs in the mortgage divisions of these financial institutions. And right now, Wells Fargo is laying off another 925 people. And guess where they're located? They're in the home loan unit mortgage division. Now, why would they be laying off more people in the home loan unit of the mortgage division if housing is booming right now? It makes no sense. The only reason they're laying off is because they know housing is in a major decline. But if you look at the corporate media, they continually are selling you that housing is doing fantastically. And we see this if we look back in 2007. Throughout 2008, the corporate media was out there letting everyone know that housing is hitting new highs, things are going great. The Fed was out there saying everything was contained, there's no recession, housing has never gone down, and we see the same thing happening now. We see mortgage applications declining, we see many companies laying off people in their mortgage divisions, and this all shows signs that something is happening. And the Fed is actually out there now saying they might be seeing signs of some type of housing bubble. And this is what they're out there saying. And they're also saying that the U.S. right now is in a fiscal mess. That the Fed right now, because of what has happened, cannot effectively fight the high unemployment unless the government gets their act together. So they're letting you know, because you have to remember the tapering was all for unemployment. As unemployment comes down, they were getting closer to what their target was, and they were going to taper. But now they're backpedaling, saying because of this shutdown, we can't, we can't fight this high unemployment now, and things are getting worse. And the Fed went on to say that, just to be clear, the Fed will take all appropriate measures to preserve money market functioning and stability in periods of acute distress. And what that really means is we'll do some money printing, because that's all they know how to do. That's all they can do, is print more money. And that's really what they want to do, is really increase the amount of money printing or money creation. That is what their end goal is, because they realize the economy is completely declining. Housing is declining. And you know what happens when housing declines? There are going to be more short sales. There's going to be more foreclosures. There are going to be more people unemployed. What that means then is, what do the banks do with all this? Because right now, the Fed is set at a certain amount that they purchase each month from all this toxic real estate. And if there's more toxic real estate, guess what they have to do? They have to up the QE. And they know this. And Obama is out there letting everyone know that the economy was doing so well until the government shut down. Remember, they were out during the summer. The Eurozone was out there, and President Obama on Thursday suggested that if things go wrong in the next 6 months, the American people should blame Republicans, not him, on his policies. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy. Gee, so here we are. They're blaming the economy, on this short period of this shutdown. Sounds a little ridiculous to me. And he goes on to say, we really don't know the full scope of this damage. But every analysis out there believes it slowed our growth. And this is what they're using right now, because the numbers are going to start coming in, and things are not going to be looking good. And very shortly they have a small window, because we are in a major decline. And right now they have a window of opportunity, because in February, guess what? They have to do this debt ceiling battle again. And they raised the debt ceiling again up to $18 trillion. And they know they have now until that time to get something done. And you know that they are going to do it, because the Fed, the government, will not be blamed for this collapse, which will be the first part of the collapse. They will make an event happen where this blame will be shifted on another country. Now, because of what happened in the government and this shutdown, the Fed is also out there saying that this is going to put a delay on the taper, maybe until January, February of 2014. A possibility that it could happen in December, but we will have to see how the economy reacts. And again, we all know that the Fed is the economy. They manipulate the numbers for unemployment with the help of the government. We know they manipulate the numbers for GDP. We know they manipulate the numbers for inflation and deflation. We know that they're manipulating all the numbers and they're controlling everything. They're controlling the stock market with high-frequency trading and plunge protection teams, pumping the banks up with created money, which then they in turn push it into the stock market to pump it up. And we saw the S&P hitting all-time new highs today. We also see gold rising, and don't expect that to rise too much, because you know what I've always said this: they will only let it rise to a certain point, and it will be pushed down again. It might be pushed down on Friday or on Monday, but they will not let it go too long. So here they are making the entire case of the economy not doing well for this period of time, because they understand it is declining at this point. And I said this back in August when I reported on the real estate, the retail, that the economy is declining, and this is what they're using to cover the entire thing up. Because, again, you have to remember, they thought they had this false flag chemical attack in the bag, and now it's not. So they are now regrouping, getting ready for the next event. And we can see that the credit agencies here in the U.S., S&P, Fitch, Egan-Jones, and Moody's, really haven't come out. They said they were looking at, taking the credit rating and downgrading it, but they haven't said anything. But outside of the U.S., the Chinese rating agency downgrades the U.S. from an A to A minus. And why did they do this? Well, it maintains a negative outlook on the sovereign credit as revenue and GDP fail to keep up with the country's massive debt. And they realize, and many nations out there realize, that we have a huge debt problem. It is so large that it cannot be sustained, and it's not shrinking. It's not, slowing. It's actually increasing, because we see it in Greece. As you pile on more debt, you need more debt to cover the interest payments and to cover all your programs. And sooner or later, it gets out of hand. And this is growing by leaps and bounds, and it cannot be controlled. It cannot be sustained. And the only way out, because they understand a collapse is coming, is to blame someone else. Okay, let's move on here. Now, I understand that many of the states have adopted Common Core, and we discussed Common Core on a couple of reports that I've done. And right now in Maryland, there was a school survey which was done in a high school, and it asked questions like your sexual orientation, your parents' political affiliation, should assault rifles be banned, who's to blame for the government shutdown. And we can see why they're doing this. They're trying to get everyone's personal information on how they feel. Remember that I talked about lists and talked about all this stuff? They're using Obamacare because Obamacare uses many of the same questions that this survey asked. We have the government going into schools using Project Sentry to pretty much have the children think of guns as something really, really bad and nobody should have them. And we see the Common Core teaching our children, or I should say not teaching them, and really dumbing them down and getting them to react with emotion. And they are trying to use Common Core to collect certain information so they have a better understanding of the American population, who is for the government, who is not for the government, what your beliefs are, and they are putting all of this together because what they believe is that when this war comes, they will still be in power and they will reset the system and they will have everything in place for what is coming. And their main objective is to get rid of the Constitution. The Constitution is a major hurdle for them. And this is why you see in a lot of the Common Core about the Bill of Rights, rewriting the Bill of Rights, asking the children, which Bill of Rights do you think we should just get rid of? Not really explaining to them that Bill of Rights cannot just be removed. They have to be ratified by all the states. And you just can't say, oh, I don't like that one, let's keep that one. But this is what they're trying to teach them and getting them ready for the New World Order. And this is why they keep saying the New World Order, because this is what they are trying to do. And this is the stage that we're at. They're putting everything into place to get ready for what is coming. And we understand that we had this debt ceiling debate, and what they're trying to do now is get rid of the debt ceiling. So there are many different things that they're trying to do because the debt ceiling is actually holding them back. Now, we understand they're trying to get rid of our rights, and we understand many of the laws that they put in place really violate the First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Ninth, pretty much all of them. And what we're seeing now is that H.R. 347, which is called the Trespass Bill, or it's known as the Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act, which that's not really what it means. What this bill says is the following. The bill is written in such a way that it gives the power to the government to bring charges against any American engaged in political protest anywhere in the country. And this is in direct violation of the First Amendment. And right now, trespassers of the White House can be arrested and prosecuted under a local ordinance. What they are trying to do is they are trying to limit where you can protest and speak out about your government. And this goes on to say that this bill will outlaw protests where some government officials are nearby, or doesn't matter if you know the officials are there or not, you can still not protest if you believe that maybe a government official is around someplace. And this is a complete violation. I mean, they are doing this because they do not want people getting together and protesting the government. Where have we seen this before? Why did our founding fathers put the First Amendment in there? Because they were restricted from protesting against the king. We are seeing the same exact thing. This is a violation, and this law is null and void because of what the Constitution says. It's in violation of the Constitution, so we don't have to follow it. We, the people, have given the government rules that they have to abide by. That's why on the document it says, we the people. We give them a list of rules. If they do not abide by these rules, we do not need them in the government. But what they're trying to do, and I've said this before, they are trying to create laws and make people believe these laws override the Constitution. Okay, now, DHS is now taking over all the aerostat blimps that hover along the borders, and they have cameras mounted on there. They were part of the Air Force, but they have been signed over to Homeland security, because when the collapse comes, again, the Air Force cannot use them. It has to be a non-military force, which is DHS, and they will use these blimps to monitor Americans around the country and to keep an eye on everyone. And these are aerostats, and they're essentially stationary camera-mounted blimps that stare at the border, and the Air Force were in control of them, but now DHS is now in control. So we can see how they are forming and creating this police state to keep an eye, to keep track, and it's getting worse and worse because now we have them using facial scanners to identify where you are. They are tracking people. They are spying on people. They understand your buying habits. They're using facial recognition in the supermarkets. You will be tracked. They will know everything about you. They are creating social profiles on everyone and understanding who knows who belongs to what. If you're lying on your tax return, if you're buying things that you really can't afford, or you're trying to hide money, it's a complete invasion of your privacy, and it is a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment. But we can see the police state starting to form now, and it's been ongoing and getting worse. Okay, now, like I said in the past, the U.S. is creating a circle around China because they understand when this war breaks out, it's going to be China and Russia, and they need to be ready. So they are working now with Malaysia to establish a Marine Corps naval base, and that is right outside of China. And right now, the equipment that the U.S. has offered Malaysia is infantry weapons, night vision goggles, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. It's also offering the AH-1Z Super Cobra to meet Malaysia's requirements for attack helicopters, and they understand that they are going to be using this strategic location to keep this circle around China, because they understand when World War III breaks out, they need everything to be covered, because the central bankers, globalist elite, really do believe that when this is all over and done, that they will be able to get rid of the Constitution. They will start the entire scheme of this money printing Ponzi scheme all over again, and this time they're going to do it under their rules and not what happened before back in 1913 moving forward, where they had this constitution that they had to deal with, where they couldn't control the people. And now they're getting everything in place, and we see this. It is the picture couldn't be any clearer. Now again, Russia and China understand what they are attempting to do. And this is why Russia and China are making deals. This is why they're having drills. This is why they are putting up their missile defenses, because they understand what is coming. Russia now is helping Brazil now push ahead with a planned $1 billion purchase of anti-aircraft missiles. Because you have to remember, Russia, China, Brazil, they're all part of the BRIC nation, okay, where they do not have the private Western central banks in these countries. So they're separate and apart, and the private Western central bankers, globalist elite, thinks of them as their enemy, because anyone that doesn't have and using their system, they are the enemy. So right now they are looking to help Brazil bring in a strategic defense partnership, and they expect to sign a contract by the middle of 2014 for medium-range surface-to-air Panzer S-1 missile batteries. And they are getting prepared because they understand what is about to happen. This next event that is going to occur is going to be from now until probably around the end of January. We will definitely see something. They have a small window of opportunity. They are planning the next thing, and it will be starting to ramp up. And we understand there are many drills today. We understand there was the shake, rattle, and roll exercise for earthquakes. The first half of the cyber drill for Thousand Banks occurred today. I mean, nothing happened. Again, all of these potential drills are just that, things we need to look at. But one of them, I mean, we have many within this, from now until December. We still have a bank collapse simulation that's going to happen in December. We understand that we have a power grid drill in November, and we have many people protesting in the D.C. area, and we have another round of bank cyber drills, which happens, I believe, next week. Now, a new report has come out that researchers have identified 25 vulnerabilities that can be used to crash or seize control of a power grid infrastructure facilities servers. And what that means is that power plants across the U.S. and Canada could overheat and malfunction from this type of cyber attack. And it says that most of these vulnerabilities allow potential attackers to send controlling servers into infinite loops, rendering them unable to respond to commands from controllers, which then in turn brings down the whole entire power grid. So we can see there are 25 vulnerabilities. DHS has been notified that these are outstanding vulnerabilities, and as of right now, Department of Homeland Security has not done anything about these. I can't imagine why they haven't. And we have to think back to Janet Napolitano, who told us on her way out that it is not if, but when the power grid is hit, when a cyber attack is being occurring in the U.S. So we understand that something is definitely going. And plus, they've been brainwashing us for over a year and a half, almost 2 years now, about the power grid is vulnerable, about the gas lines are vulnerable, about the financial institutions are vulnerable to a cyber attack. And we've seen many, many glitches. We've seen many strange occurrences, a lot of anomalies up until this point, because what are they doing again? They are getting ready for something to happen. And right now, the Department of Homeland Security has reported so far in 2013 that 23 gas pipelines have been hacked into right now, and they are not sure what has been done to these 23 gas pipelines. If something is dormant in the systems, they don't understand at this point if something is just sitting there waiting. And they said, it states that the attacks were possibly sabotage, possibly. I wonder by who. But the report also notes that Chinese hackers were seen at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers National Inventory of Dams. And once these infiltrators get into the system, in theory, could cause the flow of natural gas through a pipeline to grind to a halt, which could trigger an explosion. So they are definitely prepping for something. Something is definitely on the horizon. We are seeing too many things out there. And what else are we seeing? We are seeing that JP Morgan Chase has just put capital controls on wiring money out of the country. Now another bank has joined them, HSBC, and we have to understand that many other banks are going to start to do this, because they do not want the wealthy right now to have their money flowing out of the country to someplace else. Because, again, these banks are insolvent. They cannot have these people removing huge amounts of money. But we understand that as time goes on, they're going to continually lower the amounts, and more banks are going to join in with these capital controls. Now, is this a signal right now that people should be worried and get their money out of the banks? Now, right now, think about this. You cannot transfer your money out of the country over a certain amount. So that means that you can only transfer within the country. And you only can withdraw a certain amount at this time. And I believe the limit is $50,000 right now. But we know that this is going to continually drop. So right now, your money is stuck in the U.S. Think about this for a second. The first part of capital controls. Is this a sure signal that something is about to happen? Well, I think so. They're not allowing you to remove or take your money. Now, the next phase is, well, now they drop the amount and they say now you can only withdraw $10,000. So how do you get your money out of the bank? Pretty soon it'll be $5,000. Next thing you know, it'll be like Cyprus, only $400 a day. You can see what is happening. It's starting to happen. And for those people who have quite a bit of money, should really start thinking about what they are going to do at this point, because your options are starting to be limited, and before you know it, you will have no options. Now, we understand that Al-Qaeda has given a warning that they're going to attack the U.S. We understand that the senators were out there telling us, especially Lindsey Graham was out there saying that Iran is ready to nuke us. We also understand that Al-Qaeda is becoming more advanced. They're breaking off into lone wolf groups. And we understand that they tried this false flag with Syria with chemical weapons. Now, experts are warning of a new threat, a biological weapons threat. And the international attention in Syria focuses on efforts to dismantle the Assad regime's chemical weapons stockpile, but British experts are warning of another potentially more lethal threat. The clear and present danger of Al-Qaeda gaining possession of Assad's stockpile of biological weapons, claiming to have substantial evidence that Al-Qaeda linked groups may already have possession of toxic agents. And for those people who are new, I've said this in my past reports, the next event will not be an explosion. It will not be just a cyber attack. It will be a multiple event occurrence. We will see a cyber attack. We might even see a mini nuclear explosion. We might even see chemical or biological weapons being used. And this will be across the country. And you can see from what is happening at this time that they are preparing to do this. And this goes on to say that the Assad regime is losing control of its bioweapons arsenal, in part because it was never centrally controlled in the way the country's chemical weapons stockpile has been. So you can see what they're trying to do right now. They are now shifting from chemical to biological, and Assad has them. Very interesting. And Al-Qaeda might even have them in their possession. So it's a perfect two-stage false flag. Assad has biological weapons, and Al-Qaeda has them in their possession and could be used anywhere in the world. And other Al-Qaeda branches, most notably in Yemen and North Africa, have previously attempted to attain such weapons, and the group's founder, Osama bin Laden, which they mentioned, had expressed an interest in them prior to 9/11. Do you see what they're trying to do? So let's get this straight now. We've had the airlines reporting of dry runs of Muslims in the planes. They reported to TSA, and TSA said, not a big deal. We saw this back before 9/11 happened. Now they're bringing up Osama bin Laden, that he wanted biological weapons. So we have the dry runs on the planes, which is like 9/11. We have biological weapons, which they're saying that, Osama bin Laden wants. They're saying Al-Qaeda could have biological, and Syria has biological, but we don't know who. They're not controlled, so we don't know, really where they are and they can be used. All of this is being prepared. They are planning the propaganda right now for the next event. And a sure good sign of something that's definitely going to happen is you see many of the leaders start to quit their jobs. Who do we see so far? Janet Napolitano left. Hillary Clinton left. Keith Alexander, the NSA director, adios, he's leaving. Ben Bernanke is about to leave. Most of these people are starting to bail ship. They are leaving. We can see what is going to happen. We have a small window. They had to do this reset, and I know people are like, "Oh, we thought something was going to happen," but again, the plan was scrapped because the American people did not want to go to war. Congress didn't want to go to war, and they couldn't taper because they didn't have the event to support the collapse. So now they're creating the new plan, and we can see it forming. We can see the picture right now of what they're trying to do. Nothing has been stopped. They are still going forward because has the collapse stopped? No. Actually, it's worse now. Now we're taking on more debt. Do they still have to get to Syria and to Iran to keep the dollar propped up? Yes. Nothing has changed. John Kerry, Susan Rice, still going on about changing the regime in Syria. They still want the same things, the control of all natural resources, and to use the dollar as the reserve currency in all these countries. This is why we have forces building up in Italy to attack the African nations. This is why we see all this propaganda coming out now. This is why all of this is happening. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.